Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world of velvet suits, purple pianos, and wait for it, counterfeit painkillers deadlier than a tax audit in April. That's right, tonight's sleep story is about how fake pills laced with fentanyl killed Prince, the legendary, mysterious, pancake-loving genius of 2016. And I promise, it's not as bleak as it sounds, at least not until we get to the part where even rock stars are Googling, is this headache pill supposed to taste like embalming fluid? But before we drift off into the purple fog, do me a favour and gently nudge that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you're listening from. Because as Prince would say, time is a trick and you're probably already late. But only if you actually enjoy this stuff. Seriously, don't feel pressured. If you're here just for the soothing disappointment, that's valid too. Now go ahead, dim those lights, put on a fan for that white noise concert vibe, and get as cosy as a Paisley shirt in a room with 3 space heaters. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered what it was really like to be Prince at the height of his fame? Did he ever sleep? How many hours a day did he spend searching for the perfect pair of platform boots? Why did he keep so many doves? Was Paisley Park really a musical Willy Wonka's factory, or just a really expensive way to avoid neighbours? Or maybe, have you ever asked yourself, what's it like to need painkillers after decades of splits, jumps and on-stage acrobatics, only to find out your medicine is literally more dangerous than your ex's cooking? Would you survive the drama, the fans, the fame, and the slow realization that the real villain isn't heartbreak, it's the modern American pharmaceutical supply chain? Congratulations! You've just woken up in April 2016. You're Prince. You're a legend. You're tired, hurting, and surrounded by a sea of purple, wondering if this is what victory is supposed to feel like, or if you accidentally time-travelled into a pharmaceutical commercial with really bad side effects. Good luck. Wake up in Paisley Park, Prince's labyrinthine studio mansion, a place where no room is safe from a surprise recording session, and every light switch might lead to a hidden vault of unreleased music or a closet full of custom lace shirts. It's 7 a.m, and the sunlight outside is doing its best to break in through tinted windows and thick purple drapes. Not that it matters. Here at Paisley Park, time is a suggestion, not a law. You roll out of a velvet-draped bed that looks like something Liberation Willy Wonka co-designed. As Prince, you're not greeted by an alarm clock. Instead, a soft guitar riff echoes through the walls, the house itself reminding you there's work to be done, and somewhere, probably, a bass line you forgot to finish in 1992. You pad down a hallway where the floor is so clean and polished that even your reflection is wearing heels. On your left, a rehearsal stage, lights still glowing from last night's impromptu jam. On your right, a studio with 3 grand pianos, a drum kit, and a stack of tapes labelled "Do Not Open Until Humanity Evolves." You consider making coffee, but instead, a staff member, whose name you only know in theory, offers a smoothie that tastes faintly of lavender and mystery. There's no such thing as privacy at Paisley Park. The walls are thick, but the ideas are thicker. Security cameras blink at you, but you're not sure if they're for actual security or just in case you do something so brilliant it needs to be archived. Every corridor is lined with framed platinum records and cryptic notes scribbled in eyeliner. No one knows how many people are here at any given moment. Sometimes there are dozens, technicians, assistants, fans who got lost on a tour and are still waiting for directions out. Sometimes it's just you, alone with the echo of your own high notes. Being Prince in this house means living at the centre of a creative storm. You're the eye, but you're also the wind, the rain, and the lightning. Inspiration doesn't come on schedule, it crashes through at 3 a.m, demanding attention. There's no such thing as a closed set. Any room might become a stage, any kitchen might become a sound booth, any closet might double as a meditation chamber, just don't move the capes. The smell of incense drifts down from the 2nd floor. Somewhere, a drum machine is looping, waiting for you to decide if it belongs in a ballad or a future dance craze. You haven't seen the outside world in days, but that's fine. Here, inside these walls, you are the outside world. There are entire rooms dedicated to costumes, rows of sequined jackets, paisley suits, and shoes designed for defying gravity and podiatrist's advice. Try finding socks in here. You'll end up with a purple glove and a feather boa and call it a win. The staff move quietly, almost reverently, as if working in a library of sound. Their job is simple. Don't interrupt, don't judge, and definitely don't throw out any napkin with a lyric on it. Everyone has a story about the time Prince wrote a song in the elevator, or how the janitor accidentally became a backup singer on a B-side that only 3 people have ever heard. It's not just a house, it's a living, breathing organism, fueled by caffeine, genius, and whatever was in that smoothie. Lunch is a concept, not a meal. You nibble at a kale salad while plotting the arrangement for an unfinished track from 2005. The phones ring constantly, agents, journalists, collaborators, but you answer only if the mood strikes. Sometimes you disappear for hours, wandering into rooms no one else is allowed to enter, only to emerge with a melody and an outfit change that defies known physics. At Paisley Park, you never really sleep. You catnap in a velvet armchair, lulled by the hum of amplifiers. The house hums with energy, as if the building itself is restless. Even when you try to relax, a synthesizer calls to you from the next room, taunting you with the possibility of one more masterpiece. In this mansion, there are no boundaries between work and rest, between night and day. Genius never sleeps, it just changes rooms. By midnight, Paisley Park is alive again, musicians drifting in, laughter echoing through halls, someone in the kitchen making pancakes for dinner. Here, surrounded by your creations, you're reminded of what it means to be Prince. Always awake, always searching, and always a little bit hungry for whatever song is waiting behind the next purple door. Imagine breakfast as Prince: oat pancakes, sunglasses indoors, and a polite but firm refusal to answer any question with fewer than 5 cryptic metaphors. You are not, at this moment, a regular person in a regular kitchen, shuffling toward a regular box of cereal. You are Prince, which means your morning is a carefully choreographed ballet of routine and improvisation, somehow both hyper-specific and totally unpredictable. Your first act is sliding into the breakfast nook at Paisley Park, still in silk pyjamas naturally, where the sunlight filtering through purple-tinted windows lands just right. Because of course it does. Physics itself is intimidated here. On the table, a plate of pancakes so precisely golden, they look like they auditioned for the role of breakfast but famous. They are, of course, oat-based. Gluten, you've declared, is strictly for the uninspired. Syrup is served in a crystal decanter, as if even your carbohydrates need stage lighting. There's a bowl of blueberries, because antioxidants, and a single, ornamental mint leaf perched on top, silently radiating stage fright. You eat in silence, but the silence is intentional, full of purpose, like a rest in a jazz solo. No one speaks unless spoken to. The chef waits by the door, uncertain if you'll request vegan bacon, a 5-course fruit medley, or suddenly decide to fast for artistic reasons. An assistant brings in your sunglasses on a silver tray, as if the rising sun must negotiate directly with your sense of style. You slip them on, mostly because there are already 3 cameras in the house, and you never know which one's rolling for the future documentary. You do not allow eye contact until the pancakes are finished. Royalty needs boundaries, especially before noon. A journalist calls, hoping for an interview. "Can you explain the secret to your morning energy?" they ask, as if there's a simple answer. You respond, "Sunrise is like the first chord in a new song, full of potential, dangerous if you hit the wrong note." The journalist nods, pretending to understand, and promptly adds philosopher to your Wikipedia entry. After breakfast, you stand and do a gentle twirl, part stretch, part performance, all Prince. You don't walk from room to room. You glide, you swirl, you drift in and out of scenes as if gravity is a polite suggestion. The slippers you wear are purple. You own no other colour, and frankly, neither should anyone else. Next comes the morning creative ritual, a stroll through the garden, still dew-soaked and private, away from the main grounds. As you move, you hum snatches of melody into a jewel-encrusted voice recorder. Sometimes it's a new song. Sometimes it's just you mumbling about how raspberries and berries don't rhyme but should. Inspiration is everywhere. But discipline is key. You once wrote half an album before lunch just to see if you could. Back inside, it's time for work, which, as Prince, means everything and nothing. You wander into Studio B, where a band is already warming up, waiting for you to direct, inspire, or gently shame them into greatness. You might record a vocal track for 3 hours, or sit in the corner eating more blueberries and philosophizing about why E minor feels dishonest. You're at once the strictest boss and the loosest improviser, all while remaining frustratingly enigmatic. Lunch is offered but not guaranteed. You might accept a tiny salad or dismiss food altogether, claiming you're living off light and rhythm today. Staff take notes, not sure if that's a dietary trend or the next big hit. You review set lists, approve purple stage lighting, and sign off on a new shipment of platform boots, because the arch support of mere mortals does not concern you. By afternoon, there's usually a meeting. Lawyers, managers, designers, they gather, hoping for concrete decisions. Instead, you respond in riddles, koans, and the occasional haiku. The contract is a river. Don't build your house on the floodplain, you intone, leaving them to wonder if you're talking about royalties or existential dread. Someone takes it literally and invests in sandbags. As the day slips toward evening, you retreat to your meditation room. There you'll write, reflect, or just listen to the sound of silence. Except, somehow, it's always in 4x4 time. Dinner, if you want it, is another performance. Candles, fresh flowers, and a conversation about the metaphysical properties of sweet potatoes. By midnight, you're not winding down. You're probably at a piano, reinventing a song you wrote yesterday, sunglasses still on, pancakes just a memory. Because in the life of purple royalty, morning is a mystery, and the only thing certain is that the day is yours to shape, bend, and turn into legend. You stretch. Your body protests. 30 years of splits, jumps, and high-heeled choreography have left you with the joints of a retired hockey player and the wardrobe of an intergalactic sultan. There's a low groan from your hips as you rise, a reminder that gravity has never been an ally, just a persistent critic. You plant your feet, roll your shoulders, and feel 100 micro-injuries negotiating their surrender. Your knees pop like a metronome set to slightly concerning. Welcome to the morning routine of Prince, the only man who ever made pirouetting in 4-inch heels look both easy and, against all orthopedic odds, inevitable. By all rights, your first appointment of the day should be with a team of physical therapists and possibly an exorcist. Instead, it's with a mirror and a stack of demo tapes. As you ease into the first stretch, you remember every leap from every tour, jumps that would make a gymnast wince and a chiropractor send you a Christmas card. Your warm-up is equal parts yoga, jazzercise, and self-delusion. There's a stack of foam rollers in the corner, some still in their packaging. You keep them around as talismans, like other people keep dream catchers or unused gym memberships. You stand, gaze at your reflection, and debate if today's look is funk royalty or cosmic gladiator. Either way, you're putting on the boots. Not just any boots. These are custom-made, patent leather, and, judging by the arch angle, designed by someone with a vendetta against feet. You slide them on with the reverence of a knight suiting up for battle. Most people wear sneakers to dance. You, on the other hand, strap on the kind of shoes that double as both a fashion statement and a medical mystery. Now comes rehearsal. You hit play on the studio system and suddenly the room is alive with your own voice, urging you to do things you're fairly sure void the warranty on most human skeletons. You start with a gentle sway, then a spin, then, because restraint is for people without a legacy to defend, you slide into the splits. The crack in your hip is loud enough to set off the alarm in the next room, but you rise with a flourish. You're breathing hard, but you're smiling. For you, pain is just the applause of the body, a standing ovation from every nerve ending. Somewhere a tour doctor once begged you to stop. Prince, you're not 20 anymore. Maybe skip the jump off the piano tonight, but you're not here for medical advice, you're here for spectacle. If the show doesn't end with at least one wardrobe malfunction and a mild sprain, is it even a show? The band watches, equal parts awe and concern, as you launch into choreography that should be studied by NASA for its sheer defiance of the laws of physics. Every move has a memory. The knee slide from Purple Rain left a scar you named after a minor chord. That flying spin from Kiss. You still find glitter from that in your sock drawer. Even the toe stand, yes, on a piano bench, was less of a dance move and more of a dare to the universe. Go on, try and stop me. The next morning's aches are your battle medals, proof that you gave everything, even when your body would have preferred a warm bath and a gentle podcast. Mid-rehearsal, a backup dancer asks how you do it. Discipline, you reply, and then, quieter, and really good insurance. You wink, but underneath the joke is the truth. You dance because you must. Music doesn't just move you, it possesses you, runs through your bones like electricity. The risk is the price of magic. After rehearsal, you limp back to your dressing room, dignity intact, cartilage not so much. There's ice, painkillers, maybe a moment where you wonder if you should take it easier. But you know better. You'll do it all again tomorrow, because if there's one rule in your house, it's this. Genius might never sleep, but it also never sits down during a guitar solo. And as you slip off your boots, toes screaming, you think, if joints could sing, they'd be wailing the blues. But you'd still dance to it. Slipping on your iconic platform boots, you wonder if OSHA has an emergency hotline for musicians with acrobatic ambitions and a passionate disregard for orthopedic safety. This is not an idle thought. You stare at your wardrobe, a glittering shrine to all that is impractical in footwear. Most people own shoes that get them from point A to point B. You own shoes that turn every hallway into a runway, every staircase into an act of faith, and every stage into a high-wire circus act. Each pair tells a story. Here's the set with mirrored heels from the 1999 tour, the purple suede numbers that nearly caused an international incident in Paris, and the famously sequined boots that have their own insurance policy. You suspect your collection has more rhinestones than the average Las Vegas wedding chapel. You pick today's pair, 4-inch, white leather, custom fitted like a luxury sports car for your feet. You slip them on with all the ritual of a samurai donning armour, slowly, reverently, and while eyeing a bottle of ibuprofen on the vanity. Even the staff move with caution, careful not to disturb the arrangement. The assistants have a silent agreement. If you ever yell, "Where's my left boot?" everyone knows exactly which shelf to check. These boots aren't just footwear, they're stage partners, equal parts prop and hazard. You recall entire costume fitting centered on finding the right shade of lavender to match a new pair of platforms, arguments involving color swatches, velvet scraps, and a consultant flown in from Milan who left muttering about American excess. You're not satisfied until the boots look like they could be worn by a cosmic emperor or an intergalactic wrestler, preferably both. You lace them up and stand, adding several inches to your already intimidating presence. This is not without its dangers. The floors of Paisley Park gleam with the polished peril of a skating rink. Walking, you develop a unique gait, part strut, part calculated risk assessment, part Olympic balance beam routine. It's less taking a stroll and more defying gravity with style. The household staff quietly clear any objects from your path just in case. The memory of that one time you tripped over a stray tambourine is enough to haunt everyone's sleep. Of course, there's rehearsal. The boots aren't just for show. They are your co-stars, asked to endure pirouettes, power slides, and spontaneous jumps from grand pianos, all without complaint. No one is allowed to comment on the way you occasionally wince stepping off the stage, or how the backup dancer who tried on your boots once spent a week limping and reconsidering their career. You alone know the art of pretending you're comfortable, even when your toes have organised a labour strike. There's a rhythm to it. At sound check, you stomp once to test the acoustics, twice to check the heel stability, and 3 times to announce to the universe, yes, these are necessary. If anyone doubts your choices, you simply point to your Grammy shelf, or the sign taped inside your closet that reads, "Ballet flats are for emergencies only." The medical bills? Let's just say your podiatrist sends you birthday cards and holiday fruit baskets. Friends have made gentle suggestions. Have you tried orthopedic insoles? But you know that no insole could ever match the adrenaline of walking out in boots that threaten to topple you, and the world's expectations at the same time. It's a high-risk, high-reward kind of glamour. Each step is a statement. Comfort is temporary, but icon status is forever. By late afternoon, you switch to rehearsal slippers, but only briefly. Stage time is approaching, and the boots are back on. You look in the mirror, taller, bolder, and frankly a little dangerous. As Prince, you know style isn't about ease, it's about transformation. If you're not willing to risk a twisted ankle in the pursuit of the perfect silhouette, are you even living? And when the night is over, and you peel them off, there's relief. Yes, but also satisfaction. Your feet may ache, your back may crack, but you've walked taller than anyone else, both literally and metaphorically. The world will remember the music, the moves, and the message, but they'll never forget the boots. You try to nap, but inspiration hits at 3 a.m. Again. Rest is optional. Writing another hit song is not. The only REM you get is Raspberry Beret stuck on repeat in your head. You lie back on a velvet couch that looks comfortable in theory, but suspicious in practice. The lights are low. The house is quiet. This is the part of the night where normal people surrender. You, however, feel the familiar buzz, the gentle electrical hum that says sleep is a distraction and the universe is calling collect. Somewhere in Paisley Park, A synthesizer clears its throat. You close your eyes. Your brain immediately opens 17 windows. A bass line wanders in, uninvited. A lyric taps on the glass. A chord progression insists it was promised attention 3 decades ago and would like to speak to the manager. You sigh, not annoyed, resigned. You've learned that fighting inspiration is like arguing with the weather. You can complain, but you're still getting rained on. You shuffle toward the studio in socks, sunglasses still on because night and day are purely symbolic concepts now. The hallway lights flicker to life like they've been waiting for you. They always are. You sit at the piano, crack your knuckles, and tell yourself, this will only take 5 minutes. It never does. 5 minutes becomes an hour. An hour becomes a small eternity with a drum machine. This is how it always happens. You promise yourself rest, then betray yourself with productivity. Your circadian rhythm has filed a formal complaint and been ignored. Doctors have suggested schedules, routines, winding down. You nod politely and then stay up until dawn, rearranging harmonies that only you will ever hear. Sleep to you is a nice idea, like moderation or wearing sensible shoes. At 3:47 a.m, the house is silent except for the sound of genius pacing. You hum, stop, hum, again, reject the first hum, fall in love with the second, and immediately begin to doubt it. You record a demo, listen back, shake your head, and record another. Somewhere a staff member wakes up, senses activity, and rolls over knowing there will be pancakes later and no explanations now. You've tried sleeping pills. They don't work. Or worse, they work just enough to make you groggy, but not enough to silence the ideas. You lie there half awake, half composing, trapped between rest and rhythm. Your dreams have a beat. Your nightmares have backup vocals. Even when you do sleep, you wake up with melodies clinging to you like static. There's a cost to this, of course. Your body keeps score, eyes burn, joints ache. Mornings feel like they start halfway through the day, but you tell yourself you'll catch up later. You always do, just not tonight. Tonight the song needs you, and you need the song. This is the agreement you've had since the beginning. You give it everything, and it gives you purpose. Fair trade. You glance at the clock. 4:12 a.m. The world outside is asleep, dreaming ordinary dreams about emails and errands. You're awake, carving something strange and beautiful out of silence. It feels conspiratorial, like you're sneaking around while time isn't looking. You pour a glass of water, maybe tea, maybe something else entirely, and keep going. Eventually the song settles. It stops asking questions. It sits there, complete, like it's always been waiting. You lean back, exhausted and satisfied, the way only a finished idea can make you feel. For a moment, you consider sleeping, just a little. The couch looks softer now, the lights dim, then a harmony whispers, just one more thing. You smile. Sleep can wait. Because for you, night isn't for resting, it's for listening. Even behind Paisley Park security gates, you're still Prince. There's nowhere to hide. Not from fans, not from journalists, and especially not from yourself. You wander through the endless hallways of your own creation, a palace built for privacy but never truly safe from the gaze of the world. Each wall is thick, each door is locked, but fame seeps in through the tiniest cracks. On the best days, you find comfort in the solitude, a chance to reflect, create, and just exist as a human being who loves pancakes and occasionally wears pajamas until noon. But even here, the outside world has ways of getting in. The phone rings. A journalist wants a quote. An old friend's brother's dentist is asking for backstage passes. There's a drone hovering suspiciously over the garden again. Privacy used to mean locking the door and drawing the curtains. But now, privacy is a negotiation. A carefully scripted routine. Your home, your sanctuary, is part fortress and part fishbowl. The walls are soundproofed, the gates are coded, and there's a staff whose job, among other things, is to intercept fans hiding in the bushes with bouquets and manuscripts they swear you'll want to read. You appreciate the devotion, but you'd also appreciate being able to water your plants in peace. Every day is a balancing act. You crave solitude, but your existence is defined by being seen, heard, and remembered. Even your neighbours, if they can be called that, since the nearest one is barely visible with binoculars, know they're living next to a legend. That means local rumours have a half-life longer than uranium. Did you walk to the mailbox wearing purple rain boots? Is that a new car or just a very shiny golf cart? Did someone see you buying produce at midnight? Or was that just another Prince impersonator? It's not just the outside world. Technology has made the boundaries thinner than ever. Security cameras watch you, not because you're worried about burglars, but because you once caught an overzealous fan attempting to crawl through the pet door. Your own staff carry phones with more megapixels than the Hubble telescope. Every cough, every sigh, every questionable breakfast experiment, potentially immortalized in the cloud. There are days when you long for anonymity, to go out for coffee without a bodyguard, or the risk of appearing on 17 Instagram stories before you've even ordered. You envy people who can wander through Target in sweatpants and not be noticed. For you, a trip to the store is a public event. You can't even buy shampoo without someone whispering, "Is that?" and snapping a photo before you've had a chance to check for split ends. And yet, the need to be known is part of the deal. Art is meant to be shared. Music is meant to be heard. You remind yourself that the world's curiosity, however invasive, is rooted in love, even if it sometimes feels like a cross-examination at a trial for crimes against normalcy. You find clever ways to carve out private moments, taking late-night walks through empty corridors, disguising yourself for impromptu drives, or hiding in plain sight at your own parties, watching the revelers forget they're standing in the shadow of legend. Still, the hardest person to escape is you. The self you see when the makeup is off, the stage lights have dimmed and the house is silent. It's in those moments, alone, unguarded, that you remember why you built Paisley Park in the first place. It wasn't just to keep the world out, but to keep your true self safe, the quiet, gentle, sometimes lonely human beneath the legend. So you sip your coffee, pull the curtains, and start composing a new song. The world will hear it soon enough. For now, you let yourself enjoy the fleeting privacy of being the only person listening. You glance at the bottle of painkillers by your bed, and try to remember when your hips started hurting more than your feelings. This is the kind of arithmetic no one warns you about. Every leap, every split, every gravity-defying high-heeled stomp across a stage comes with compound interest. At first, you ignore it. You tell yourself, it's just a twinge. Then one day, the twinge upgrades to a throb, and the throb sets up a timeshare in your lower back. You used to recover from all-nighters and acrobatic concerts with a smoothie and a stretch. Now, you count your bruises like rings on a tree and wonder if Advil comes in family size. It's not just the obvious stuff. Hips, knees, the shoulder you once dislocated during an especially enthusiastic guitar solo. No, the pain is democratic. It votes in every joint. Ankles grumble, wrists protest, even your neck weighs in. You make noises when you stand up, tiny symphonies of effort that would have been unthinkable in your 20s. There are days when the only thing louder than your music is the chorus of your own creaking bones. You try to keep your complaints to yourself. Being Prince means being an icon, not an invalid. The show must go on, preferably in 4-inch heels and with a 12-minute encore. But in private, you're meticulous about the rituals that hold you together. Ice packs on the knees, heating pads for the back, yoga at midnight, in the hope that stretching might loosen something other than your last ounce of patience. A shelf of vitamins and supplements grows ever more elaborate: turmeric, magnesium, glucosamine, each promising the impossible, to turn back the clock on 30 years of musical mayhem. Of course, there are days you just can't fake it. The body says no, and the mind has to listen. Cancelled sessions, postponed rehearsals, a quiet apology to the band who have learned to recognise the look you get when even the legend can't outdance arthritis. There's a humiliation in that, an unspoken fear that the world, so used to your invincibility, will notice you're just as fragile as anyone else. But what do? You adapt. You invent new moves, ones that look effortless but cleverly dodge the worst aches. You let the lighting do more of the heavy lifting. You become a master of disguise, turning necessity into style. A slower song here, a dramatic pause there. The audience sees a creative choice. You feel a shooting pain in your sciatic nerve. It's all about keeping up the illusion. The magician never reveals how the trick is done, especially when the trick is standing upright. Doctors give you advice. Take it easy, as if that's ever been an option. They offer treatments and timelines, shaking their heads when you tell them you're planning another tour. Sometimes you nod and agree to rest, then sneak back into the studio for just a few minutes that become hours. After all, what's a little discomfort when the alternative is creative silence? Then there's the emotional toll. It's one thing to manage pain, It's another to accept that the body, once your most loyal instrument, now has conditions. You start to understand why so many in your position try to mask the pain, because to admit it feels like surrendering some part of the myth. But pain is patient. It waits for you after the applause. It sits in the passenger seat on the way home. It wakes you up at 4 a.m. reminding you that greatness and vulnerability are two sides of the same gold record. So you swallow the painkiller, do your stretches, and keep moving. Not because you're stubborn, though you are, but because you know the price of stopping is higher than any ache. To be a legend is to endure, and to transform even your injuries into another verse, another show, another reason to keep singing, even when it hurts. Fame means fans, awards, and free pancakes. It also means 4 a.m. interviews, contract disputes, and more pressure than a Tupperware lid you can't quite get off. It's easy from the outside to imagine the music industry as a non-stop parade of applause, velvet ropes, and golden statuettes. You're Prince, after all, purple royalty, musical revolutionary, possessor of more platinum than most dentists dream of. But with every spotlight comes a shadow. For every award on your shelf, there's a stack of paperwork in your office and a chorus of managers, lawyers, and label execs all convinced they know what's best for the brand, even if they've never set foot on stage. The good stuff first. There's the roar of the crowd, the taste of victory when a new album debuts at number 1, the satisfaction of seeing your name in lights, preferably in a custom font. There are perks too. Chefs who'll make you pancakes at 3 in the afternoon, drivers who remember how you take your coffee, and the kind of gifts that don't fit inside normal stockings, jewelled canes, Paisley capes, gold-plated everything. You don't have to wait in line for anything, except, maybe, at your own parties. But the industry is also a machine with an appetite. It devours time, energy, and if you're not careful, joy. Early on, you're grateful for the opportunities, the record deals, the chance to turn your basement demos into radio hits. But gratitude eventually runs headfirst into reality. Endless promotional tours, interviews at ungodly hours, and more press junkets than there are hours in the week. You answer the same question so often you could do it in your sleep. Sometimes you do. Tell us about the meaning behind your new album. You smile, nod, and invent a metaphor on the spot. It's about the colour purple, but also about time travel and breakfast foods. No one blinks. They write it down, print it, and the myth grows legs. Then there's the paperwork, the contracts that stack up like unfinished sheet music, each one more complicated than the last. You hire lawyers who speak fluent legalese and translators who speak fluent artist. Everyone wants a piece. Every royalty split is a math problem designed to make you doubt your grip on reality. When you were starting out, you thought the industry was about art. Now you realise it's also about percentages, loopholes, and the fine print that haunts your dreams. Nothing in the business is ever truly yours. Not the music, not the image, not even your own name, if you let someone else trademark it first. That's why you once became a symbol instead of a name, a living protest against the industry's grip. Fans called it weird. You called it freedom. Every interview became a chess match. Would you talk, or would you let the silence say everything? But the hardest part, the part no one warns you about, is the pressure. The expectation to always be brilliant, to outdo your last masterpiece, to be available, gracious, and unbreakable. One album is a hit, the next is judged against it. You're told you have creative control, just as long as you still sell records. There's always someone watching, calculating, betting on your next move. No matter how high you rise, you can always fall, and the ground is littered with the cautionary tales of those who did. So you keep dancing on the edge, charming the industry gatekeepers, while quietly building your own kingdom, making deals but never giving up the last word on your art. Because at the end of the day, the industry gives, and the industry takes. But if you're Prince, you never let it take more than you're willing to give. You keep a part of yourself back, guarded and sacred, the flame that no contract can touch. And that, in the end, is how you survive, by remembering that the business is a game, but the music is your life. Every muscle is a battle scar. After decades of moonwalking and splits, you need help getting through a show. But the world expects you to be superhuman, and superhumans don't limp. You try to hide it at first, the way your hip clicks, the catch in your knee, the burning twinge in your lower back when you slide across the stage in boots that could double as medieval torture devices. For years, pain is something you power through. You train yourself to ignore it, because the music is bigger, the show is bigger, and people came here for a legend, not a cautionary tale about repetitive strain injuries. But pain is patient. It waits. It moves in, one sore tendon at a time, until even the smallest movement reminds you that your body is a limited edition model, well-loved and just a little overworked. It doesn't matter how much you stretch, how many ice packs you use, or how religiously you practice your breathing exercises. Some mornings, the only thing more stubborn than your creativity is your sciatica. You invent little rituals to cope. Heat packs hidden backstage, special socks with secret padding, 5 minutes of meditation before the curtain rises, more for your joints than your nerves. You develop an appreciation for things like orthopedic pillows, foam rollers, and that one brand of topical cream that makes you smell like a wintergreen forest. None of it fixes the pain, but it lets you pretend for a few hours that the body is still an obedient instrument. Still, the show must go on. And you do go on, night after night, smile glued in place, pirouetting through the agony, every move calibrated to minimize disaster. Sometimes you even convince yourself that the audience can't tell, that nobody notices the way you favor your right leg, or the careful way you lower yourself onto the piano bench. You become a magician of pain management, pulling rabbits and ibuprofen out of every hat. Doctors offer their advice gently at first, then with a hint of exasperation. You need rest, maybe a surgery, maybe less high-impact choreography. You nod, promise to think about it, and then promptly schedule another rehearsal. It's not that you enjoy the suffering, it's that slowing down feels like an even greater defeat. What's a pulled muscle next to the sting of irrelevance? So you look for help where you can get it. Prescription painkillers, meant for short-term relief, start to become part of your daily routine. It's a slippery slope, but the slope is paved with good intentions and sold over the counter. Each pill takes the edge off just enough to let you step back into the limelight. Nobody talks about it openly. Maybe your manager knows. Maybe your assistant has seen the bottles multiplying, but as long as the show goes on, no one asks questions. The silence is a kind of tacit agreement. Let the music play, and we'll pretend everything else is fine. But pain, especially the chronic kind, doesn't just eat at your body, it nibbles at your confidence, your patience, your mood. There are days when even the smallest tasks, buttoning a shirt, tying a shoelace, standing up from bed, feel like auditions for a role you never wanted. You wonder if people notice, if they whisper backstage, if they guess why you sometimes sit during a solo or leave the party early. You worry they'll see the pain before they hear the song. The audience, of course, never sees the struggle in full. They see the legend, the smile, the dazzling spins. But off stage, the fight continues. A quiet battle, waged in doctors' offices and dimly lit hotel rooms, one you never expected to have to win. You become an expert at making suffering look stylish. But behind the glamour and the applause, you know the truth. Even superhumans limp, and every note you play is a tiny victory over the pain that refuses to fade. Your doctor wants to help. Your manager wants to help. Your cousin's friend's brother also wants to help, but he's not licensed, and possibly not even your cousin. That's how it goes when you're Prince. Everyone is invested in your well-being, even if their medical credentials come mostly from late-night TV and the back of vitamin bottles. The quest for pain relief becomes a group project, but no one's quite sure who's in charge. Some offer sage advice, others offer mystery capsules wrapped in Ziploc bags, and everyone, it seems, has a strong opinion on turmeric. The day starts with choices. There's a neat row of pill bottles on the nightstand, each promising relief, each with instructions written in print so tiny it would take 3 pairs of sunglasses to read. There's the official prescription from your doctor, a genuine professional with a framed diploma and a voice like gentle authority. You want to trust them. You do. But sometimes their solutions don't work fast enough. Sometimes they're cautious, and the pain isn't. That's when you start listening to other voices. The manager who swears by CBD oil, the friend who says acupuncture changed her life, the fan who once mailed you a healing crystal and instructions to sleep with it under your tongue. Every suggestion comes with the weight of hope and a pinch of skepticism. One person says avoid painkillers at all costs. Another whispers that this one bottle, this white tablet, this blue capsule will change your life. Sometimes you take the advice, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just wish the advice would let you sleep for a few hours in peace. You try to do the research. You read labels, Google side effects, and wonder if it's a bad sign when the list of possible interactions is longer than your last album's liner notes. The pharmacy is no longer just a stop for toothpaste and cough drops. It's an obstacle course. The pharmacist, patient and unfazed, answers your questions but can't answer the one you need most. Why is this all so complicated? Why isn't there one perfect pill just for you? The people around you mean well, but well is a moving target. Your doctor balances relief with responsibility. Your manager weighs the schedule, can you do the show, the shoot, the tour, against your pain. They want you well enough to perform, but not so relaxed you forget the lyrics to Little Red Corvette. Someone is always suggesting a new remedy, a new protocol, a new way to outsmart the aches. You nod, smile, try them all. Sometimes you feel like a test subject in a study that never gets published. At some point, you wonder if it's normal to have so many people involved in your health. You try to set boundaries. You tell everyone, I'll take care of it. Sometimes you even believe yourself, but the questions keep coming. Are you eating enough protein? Did you try switching to organic painkillers? Do you want the number for a specialist in Switzerland who only treats creative geniuses and former Olympians? And then, lurking in the background is the darker question. Can you trust the medicine itself? There are rumours about counterfeit pills, about drugs that look right but aren't. The bottle says hydrocodone, but what if it's something else? You hear stories about fentanyl, about accidents, about people who thought they were safe until they weren't. You double-check the labels, you triple-check the source, and you still wonder. This is the new reality. A world of well-meaning advice, medical mysteries, and a parade of bottles with names you can barely pronounce. In the end, you make the best choices you can with the information you have, hoping it's enough. You swallow the pill, take a deep breath, and walk back into the spotlight. Because out there, the only question anyone asks is, can you still play? And somehow, you always do. Painkillers from an unmarked bottle. They look right, taste wrong, and carry a risk factor somewhere between skydiving with a Home Depot bag and eating mystery sushi at a gas station. In a world where everything is available at the click of a button, the one thing that should be safest, your medicine, turns out to be a game of pharmaceutical Russian roulette. You open a bottle expecting relief, and instead get a handful of doubts. The pills are the right shape, the right colour, maybe even stamped with the same reassuring code as the real thing. But something is off. The texture is chalkier, the taste is more burnt plastic than healing mint, and the effects are unpredictable. It didn't start this way. Once upon a time, prescriptions were filled at a pharmacy where the worst risk was awkward small talk with a pharmacist who called you Ms. Prince. Now, with the opioid crisis and the never-ending demand for relief, the market has become flooded with imitations. Painkillers that aren't what they seem, slipped into the supply chain by people with more ambition than ethics and less chemistry experience than a high school sophomore. It's not just you, either. Everyone is at risk, musicians, teachers, accountants, parents, teenagers. The pharmacy that always double-bagged your allergy pills is now competing with back-alley entrepreneurs and online wellness sites offering miracle cures for half the price and none of the safety. It turns out the only thing easier to fake than a prescription is a sense of security. You get advice from all sides. Don't take anything not in its original packaging. Only use one trusted pharmacy. Never trust a pill you didn't personally see dispensed. But when pain becomes the boss, practicality sometimes wins out over paranoia. You're at a rehearsal, your joints are singing the blues, and someone hands you a bottle, says, "These worked for me," and you want to believe them. You really do. The problem is, counterfeit pills don't announce themselves. They arrive quietly, disguised as help. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and sometimes, like in your darkest nightmares, they're laced with something deadly. Fentanyl, the silent saboteur, is a favourite of pill makers everywhere. It's cheap, it's potent, and it turns a bottle of relief into a potential obituary. The tiniest trace, just a few grains, can drop a healthy person in minutes. And unlike a suspicious package on your porch, there's no bomb-sniffing dog for your medicine cabinet. You start reading every headline about overdoses. You start asking more questions about the source, about the batch number, about whether your pain is worth the risk. You wonder how it got this bad? Why isn't anyone, in charge of keeping the fakes out of the system? Why does it feel like the Wild West but with less horseback riding and more lab accidents? Even the solutions have their own risks. Some apps promise to scan pills for authenticity, but the technology lags behind the counterfeiters. You could send pills off for testing, but by the time you get the results, you've either recovered or the pain's gotten so bad you'd eat a marshmallow if someone told you it was a muscle relaxer. The counterfeit crisis is a perfect storm of desperation, profit, and lax oversight. Demand for pain relief is sky high, and legitimate prescriptions are hard to get, so the black market steps in with alternatives. It's a business plan built on suffering and a little bit of hope, the kind that leaves you more vulnerable than you'd ever want to admit. In the end, every pill is a gamble. You check, double-check, and sometimes you still roll the dice because the world expects you to show up, smile, and perform. Nobody wants to hear about the uncertainty that comes with every dose. Nobody asks what it's like to stare at a bottle and wonder if help or harm is coming next. But you take the risk anyway, because the music won't wait, and neither will the pain. This is the world you live in now, where even relief is dangerous, and trust is as rare as a painkiller with a money-back guarantee. You Google fentanyl and are promptly terrified. This isn't just a painkiller, it's a synthetic opioid so strong it makes morphine look like a chamomile tea. The facts jump out at you in bold, clinical font. Fentanyl, first synthesized in the 1960s, was designed for one thing: relieving extreme pain, the kind you get after surgery or when you've lost a limb, not just a good night's sleep. In the medical world, it's used carefully, measured down to the microgram, and administered by professionals in settings where a defibrillator is always close by. In the outside world, the world of counterfeit pills and street deals, fentanyl is a loaded gun with a hair trigger. You scroll past grim headlines and clinical diagrams. 50 times more potent than heroin, the articles say. 100 times stronger than morphine. You think back to all those times you powered through pain, wishing for something, anything, to just take the edge off so you could get back to the music. Now you realize, this is the stuff they reserve for the real emergencies. The worst part? Sometimes it finds its way into your medicine cabinet disguised as a regular old painkiller. Fentanyl doesn't play by the rules. Where other painkillers give you a gentle drift toward relief, fentanyl can knock you out faster than a bass drop at a Prince concert. The tiniest amount, a dose so small you can barely see it, can be lethal. You learn that a lethal dose can fit on the tip of a pencil. You learn that you won't always know you've taken it until it's too late. You also learn, because you're now in full Google rabbit hole mode, that fentanyl is flavourless, odourless, and can be pressed into pills that look identical to the ones doctors hand out every day. You try to picture the supply chain, a legitimate pharmaceutical plant in one country, a darkened room in another, chemicals bought in bulk, pressed, shipped, and handed off until a single pill, looking totally innocent, ends up in your palm. It's so common that even experts sometimes can't tell a fake from the real thing. That's the nightmare. All the risk, none of the warning labels. Why is it so dangerous? Because it acts fast. It binds to opioid receptors in your brain, flipping the switch that tells your body you're okay now, even if you're not. In high enough doses, it shuts down the part of your brain that remembers how to breathe. There's no time to reconsider. One moment you're looking for relief, the next you're in real trouble. Naloxone, an opioid antidote, can save lives, but only if someone is there to administer it, and only if they get there in time. Often, with fentanyl, time is measured in minutes, not hours. The overdose statistics don't lie. The US saw a surge in opioid deaths starting in the 2010s, and fentanyl is at the centre of the storm. People are dying not because they're reckless, but because they don't even know what they're taking. The supply is unpredictable, the doses are inconsistent, and the difference between helped and harmed can be a matter of a single milligram. As Prince, you can't help but feel a mix of awe and dread. There's a thin line between medicine and poison, between relief and tragedy, and fentanyl erases that line with ruthless efficiency. You think about all the people, famous, anonymous, young, old, lost to this invisible threat. You remember that even legends aren't immune. So you close the browser, set down the phone, and stare at the bottle on your nightstand with a new kind of caution. Fentanyl is the painkiller that gives no second chances. The only advice that matters: check everything, trust nothing, and understand that sometimes the thing that promises the most relief is also the thing you most need to fear. In the end, fentanyl isn't just dangerous because of what it does, it's dangerous because of how easy it is to find and how hard it is to survive. Getting a legitimate prescription is complicated, even for a superstar. You wonder if medical care should really involve this much cloak and dagger, complete with secret phone calls and aliases. You'd think being Prince would open every door, including the ones to pain relief. But it turns out the fancier the celebrity, the more complicated the medicine. For most people, getting a prescription means a quick call, a wait at the pharmacy, and maybe a magazine from 2013 in the waiting room. For you, it means elaborate scheduling, a trail of assistance, and never using your real name on any paperwork. Not because you're paranoid, but because one leaked appointment and suddenly the tabloids are running a piece on Prince's mysterious new rash before you've even seen the doctor. The process is exhausting. Your assistant starts by calling 3 clinics under different names, sometimes Mr. Nelson, sometimes Mr. Rogers. Once, in a moment of either genius or desperation, you're Purple Rain Industries LLC. Receptionists raise eyebrows, but if the right paperwork shows up and the insurance clears, nobody asks too many questions. The goal is to keep things private. Private from paparazzi, from the public, even from overzealous fans working the pharmacy counter. Ironically, all this secrecy is supposed to keep you safe, but sometimes you wonder if you've just built a maze with no exits. The appointments themselves feel like undercover missions. You enter through side doors, wearing sunglasses and a hat pulled low. You sign forms with a flourish that's equal parts disguise and calligraphy. The waiting rooms are anonymous, but the tension is always real. Every cough, every sideways glance feels loaded. You're not worried about being recognized. You're worried about being noticed. Just enough for a rumour to start, just enough for a breach. When you finally sit across from the doctor, there's a dance that happens. You have to convince them that the pain is real, that your history is real, and that you're not just another famous name looking for a free ride. You know they're watching you, weighing every word, judging you against the dozens of celebrities who came before and pushed the boundaries between pain management and addiction. Sometimes, the conversation turns clinical, cold. How many pills do you need? How long have you had the pain? Are you sure it's not just stress? You want to laugh if only it were that simple. The doctor nods sympathetically but adds more paperwork, more caveats. There are drug databases now, monitoring every prescription. Each new bottle is a negotiation, not just with the doctor but with an entire bureaucracy built to prevent abuse, but often just ensuring confusion. You sign forms, promise not to share the meds, and nod at stern lectures about the dangers of opioids. You agree knowing you'll probably be back next month, making the same case with a slightly different story. This is the double life. On stage, you are invincible, effortless. Off stage, you are a case file. Every refill feels like an indictment. You're not looking for a high, you're looking for relief. You're looking for permission to keep doing your job, for one more night, one more show, one more reason not to cancel everything and take up professional Sudoku. And sometimes, when the pain flares up and the next legitimate prescription is a week away, there's temptation. There's always someone who knows a guy with the hookup, no questions asked. You weigh the risk, remember the stories, think about the headlines that could follow. You hesitate, but the pain doesn't. You're left with 2 choices. Play the system or be played by the pain. Neither feels particularly glamorous. And so, as Prince, you become a reluctant expert in subterfuge, a regular at back entrances, a legend who sometimes wishes he could just walk into a pharmacy, hand over a script, and leave with his dignity and his privacy intact. In the age of celebrity, even the medicine comes with a spotlight. Here's the cruelest part. Symptoms can take hours to become severe, sometimes a full day. People go to sleep thinking they're fine. They are not. Antifreeze poisoning is patient. It waits. This is where the story turns quietly sinister. You expect danger to announce itself, to bang pots and pans and demand attention. But antifreeze prefers subtlety. It lets you clean up the kitchen. It lets you answer a few emails. It lets you brush your teeth and convince yourself that tomorrow will sort everything out. You lie down, pull the covers up, and tell yourself you'll feel better in the morning. After all, you've felt worse before. You've survived bad sushi, bad relationships, and that one winter flu that made soup taste like cardboard. This feels manageable. Your body, however, is still very busy. While you sleep, the chemistry keeps working. Your liver doesn't clock out. Your kidneys don't get a break. Those acids continue to accumulate, quietly tipping balances that took your body a lifetime to learn how to maintain. There's no pain dramatic enough to wake you. No single moment where you sit bolt upright and think, this is a medical emergency. Instead, there's a slow drift, a gentle slide into trouble, like falling asleep on a raft that's drifting toward a waterfall you can't hear yet. This delay is what makes antifreeze so dangerous. It doesn't punish you immediately. It rewards you with time to doubt yourself, time to second-guess the warning signs, time to choose not to seek help. By the time the symptoms sharpen into something unmistakable, the window for easy intervention has narrowed. The clock has been ticking the whole time, and no one told you where the hands were. You wake up groggy, heavier than usual. Your mouth feels dry, your head feels stuffed with cotton, and your thoughts don't quite line up. Maybe you chalk it up to bad sleep. Maybe you tell yourself you're dehydrated. You swing your legs out of bed and pause, because the room tilts just a little more than it should. You steady yourself and keep going. People are very good at pushing through discomfort. It's one of our less helpful talents. As the hours pass, things don't improve, they worsen. The nausea creeps in. The headache deepens. Your breathing feels strange. Your thoughts get fuzzy around the edges. This is the moment where realization begins to dawn, slow and unwelcome. Something is wrong. Not call in sick wrong. Not drink water and lie down wrong. This is I should have listened earlier wrong. And this is where antifreeze's patience becomes lethal. Because the damage doesn't happen all at once. It compounds. Acid builds on acid. Crystals scratch and block. Systems strain and compensate until they can't. By the time you seek help, you're not stopping a process, you're trying to undo it. Medicine can help, often dramatically, but it works best when it's early. Antifreeze knows this. It relies on hesitation. There's something especially cruel about a poison that waits until you're asleep. Sleep is supposed to be restorative. It's when your body repairs itself, when your brain resets, when the world goes quiet. Antifreeze uses that quiet to advance. While you rest, it rearranges the furniture again. It tightens the screws. It turns small problems into big ones. This delay also plays tricks on memory. You look back and think, but I felt okay. And you did. For a while. That's the trap. Feeling okay is not the same as being okay. Antifreeze thrives in that gap, in the space between sensation and reality. It's a reminder that the body can be in trouble long before it raises its voice. So if there's a lesson here, it's not about fear, it's about timing, about listening early even when the message is quiet and inconvenient. Because some dangers don't chase you. They follow at a distance, confident you'll slow down on your own. Antifreeze doesn't rush. It doesn't need to. It knows that if you wait long enough, the consequences will arrive right on time. Emotional pain is worse than any backache, but you're supposed to keep smiling. After all, the world is watching. The doves are judging. Physical pain is easy to describe. A sharpness in your hip, a dull throb in your knee, a groan from your back after another midnight rehearsal. There's a pill for that. There's a routine, ice, heat, a careful massage, a phone call to a doctor, maybe another round of applause for getting through a set without wincing. But emotional pain, that's a script no one hands you. That's the ache you're told to ignore, to smooth over, to hide under sequins and a curtain of purple. You wake up in the soft, silent rooms of Paisley Park and the quiet can feel heavier than a stadium packed with adoring fans. The phone sits silent, but you remember the days when it rang off the hook, when every producer, every artist, every friend wanted something only you could give, a collaboration, a riff, a bit of magic. Now, the pressure is different. You're expected to always be on, charming, sharp, ethereal, and above it all. There's no room for sadness in the schedule. If you're having a hard day, it's easier to say nothing. Smile for the camera, wave from the limo, nod politely when someone gushes about how much your music means to them. Say thank you. Always say thank you. People call it a lonely at the top cliché, but you're living proof that success and solitude can share the same pillow. The fans see the legend, but they never see the nights you can't sleep, the relationships you never had time for, or the moments when you wonder what normal would even feel like. You laugh at parties, you charm in interviews, you dance under a million spotlights, but sometimes, behind the doors, the only thing keeping you company is the echo of your own doubts. It's not just loneliness either. It's the pressure to be the solution to everyone else's pain while quietly shelving your own. When a friend is in crisis, you're the first to call, the first to offer advice, the first to listen. But when it's your turn, you hesitate. You don't want to burden anyone. Besides, how could someone like you, prince, icon, genius, immortal in the eyes of millions, admit to being sad, to being anxious, to feeling like a fraud sometimes even now? The world expects you to be unbreakable, so you try your best to oblige. Some days, you write songs to process the ache, tucking heartbreak and longing into lyrics that sound sweet but cut deep. Music is the only place you can be fully honest, where you can pour out sorrow and not be judged, at least not out loud. Every slow ballad, every minor chord, every melancholy melody is a confession the world will hear, but only you will really understand. You're not blind to your privilege. You know what the world would say. What could Prince possibly be sad about? And sometimes you agree with them, but emotional pain doesn't care about success. It creeps in on quiet afternoons, in the silence after the music stops, in the moment when the crowd goes home and the stage lights cool. No medicine dulls it, no fame erases it. So you keep smiling. You joke with staff, nod to the doves, wear the mask that's expected. But late at night, you admit it to yourself. Sometimes the pain no one talks about is the one you wish you could share, the one that would make you feel a little less alone. And in those moments, you remind yourself that even legends are human, that strength and softness can live side by side, and that sometimes survival means letting yourself feel everything, even when it hurts. You think you're taking a regular painkiller, but there's a twist. Like finding out your oat milk latte was made with heavy cream and consequences. That's how it starts. You have a bottle in your hand, a familiar colour and shape, the kind you've reached for 100 times. You trust it because you have to. The label looks official, the packaging is reassuringly mundane, and there's no reason to suspect that this time is any different. But deep down, a tiny part of you wonders, what if? For most people, a prescription is a contract of trust, doctor to patient, pharmacy to consumer. The system is supposed to protect you, to make sure what's inside the bottle matches what's on the outside. But in reality, the cracks are everywhere. The cracks are the loopholes, the shortcuts, the too-good-to-be-true deals, the chain of hands that pill passes through before it ever lands in your palm. Sometimes it's a supply chain, sometimes it's a friend of a friend or a well-meaning assistant trying to help you avoid one more trip to the pharmacy under a pseudonym. You swallow the pill and wait, hoping for relief, hoping for the world to right itself for an hour or two. But counterfeit pills don't play by the rules. They slip into your life quietly, disguised as the help you needed. It could be one tablet, it could be the whole bottle. Sometimes they work, sometimes they're duds, and sometimes they're loaded with something you never intended to take, fentanyl, or a cocktail of cheap chemicals that would be more at home in a hardware store than your bloodstream. How does it happen? The route from manufacturer to you isn't as straight as it should be. The legitimate pharmacies are careful, but even they aren't immune to bad actors. Then there are online pharmacies that promise overnight relief and privacy. Just upload a prescription, no questions asked. You know better than to trust these sites, but desperation and exhaustion make people take chances. One day the risk doesn't pay off, and the medicine that's supposed to help actually puts you in harm's way. It's not always about recklessness or ignorance. Sometimes it's about access. Doctors are cautious, the rules are strict, and pain doesn't care about bureaucracy. You're told to wait for a refill, but your next show is tomorrow. The temptation to accept help, any help, can be overwhelming. A friend offers a bottle, swears it's from a safe source. Your assistant tracks down a pill through a cousin in another city. Everyone wants to help, but no one can guarantee what's inside that capsule. The testing isn't foolproof either. Even experienced pharmacists have been fooled by fakes. Some counterfeits are perfect imitations right down to the imprint on the pill. The only real difference is invisible. A few extra micrograms of something deadly, or none of the active ingredient you need. You start to realize you're playing a game of chance, but the odds are invisible and the stakes are your own safety. The side effects of taking a fake pill aren't just physical. The fear creeps in. Every time you reach for a painkiller, you wonder if this is the time it backfires. The comfort you once felt is replaced by uncertainty, and the routine of managing your pain becomes a new kind of stress. Now you have to be your own detective, double-checking every prescription, triple-guessing every refill, learning the signs, the rumours, the stories of others who weren't so lucky. In the end, the cracks in the system are wide enough for tragedy to slip through. You do your best, but it's never quite enough. The world expects you to keep going, to show up, to perform, and so you do, hoping every pill you take is the real thing, hoping the consequences are only temporary. In a world where trust is broken, even medicine casts a shadow. The world expects another masterpiece. You just want to sleep through the night without pain, or at least wake up tomorrow. But the pills in your hand have other plans. It's quiet at Paisley Park in that late-night way that feels earned. The kind of silence that settles after creativity has finally loosened its grip. The lights are low. The halls are empty. The studio doors are closed for once. You move slowly now, not dramatically, not with flair, just carefully. Your body has been negotiating all day, and tonight you're tired of arguing. You sit on the edge of the bed and exhale. Another show is behind you. Another round of applause, another night where you gave the audience everything and borrowed a little against tomorrow. The pain hums, steady and familiar, like feedback left on too long. You tell yourself you'll deal with it in the morning. Morning is a concept you still believe in. This isn't about excess. It never is. It's about relief, about finding a few hours where your joints stop shouting and your mind can finally power down. You've done this routine before. Water, lights off, pills lined up like punctuation marks at the end of a long sentence. You don't dramatize it. There's no sense of danger in the room, no ominous soundtrack, just the quiet confidence that you've survived worse days than this. You swallow and lie back. The bed feels cool. The ceiling above you is familiar, comforting. Somewhere, the building settles. The gentle creak of a place that's been lived in hard and loved harder. You think about music, always music. A melody you meant to finish. A lyric that needs one better word. You make a mental note for tomorrow. Sleep comes differently now. It's not the deep, careless kind from your 20s. It's lighter, cautious, interrupted by aches and half-dreams. You drift in and out, floating between rest and awareness. The house stays quiet. No phones ring. No ideas kick down the door. For once, the night behaves. At some point, something shifts. It's subtle. No alarms. No cinematic moment. Just the body doing something it wasn't meant to do. The danger of this kind of night is that it doesn't announce itself. There's no warning label large enough to cut through exhaustion. The room stays calm. The world keeps spinning. Hours pass. Morning edges closer, pale and indifferent. Somewhere outside, the day starts like any other. Birds, traffic, coffee brewing in other houses. Inside Paisley Park, time pauses. The stillness grows heavier, not loud or violent, just final. When people begin to notice something's wrong, it's confusion first. A missed call, a door that doesn't open. Concern travels faster than panic, but not fast enough. Help is called. Voices fill the space that was so quiet only moments ago. The calm breaks, replaced with urgency, with hope, with the frantic wish that this is all just a misunderstanding. But some mornings don't bend. Some days don't rewind. The news travels fast because it always does. Faster than truth. Faster than understanding. The world wakes up to headlines instead of music. Shock ripples outward. From fans, from friends, from people who thought you'd always be there. Eternal and untouchable. Questions pile up immediately. How? Why? What happened? Everyone wants an answer neat enough to fit in a sentence, but inside the house it's simpler and sadder than that. It's just a night that went wrong, a body that had carried too much for too long, a system full of cracks that finally lined up at the worst possible moment. You didn't set out to make history that night. You were just trying to rest, to quiet the pain, to make it to tomorrow. And that's the hardest part to understand. There was no grand gesture at the end, no performance, no farewell, just a human moment, quiet and ordinary, in a life that had never been either. The morning is eerily quiet until it isn't. Staff rush in. 911 is called. The news trucks line up like vultures at a luxury estate sale. For years, Paisley Park had been a fortress, guarded gates, velvet ropes, and a kind of legendary hush that kept the outside world exactly where it belonged, outside. But on this morning, that hush cracks open and chaos seeps in. It starts small. A staff member arrives for work, expecting the normal routine of tidying, prepping, and maybe catching a distant riff of piano behind a closed studio door. Instead, there's silence, the kind of silence that feels unnatural, too heavy, as if the building itself is holding its breath. The next moments move in slow motion. Calls go unanswered. Doors that should be open stay locked. Someone knocks, hesitates, knocks again, and then finds the courage to enter. Suddenly, the world inside Paisley Park becomes unrecognisable. Voices sharpen, footsteps echo. Panic begins to ripple through the halls that were always filled with music, but now sound like a church after midnight. You hear the word emergency, a word that feels out of place here, among gold records and purple velvet. It escalates fast. Staff members, usually invisible and calm, now move with frantic purpose. They dial 911, their voices cracking under the weight of the situation. The operator's calm tone is a thin lifeline in a room spinning with disbelief. Within minutes, paramedics are on the way, sirens slicing through the sleepy Minnesota morning. Some employees stand by the windows, hands clasped, staring at the driveway as if willing a miracle to appear with the ambulance. Outside, the news spreads with the same unstoppable speed. Reporters, alerted by whispers and scanner traffic, converge on Paisley Park as if the estate itself has become the centre of gravity for the entire world. Cameras are unpacked, microphones thrust forward, and for once, the velvet ropes can't hold them back. Neighbours watch from across the street, faces pressed to glass, as if hoping for reassurance or an answer to the question no one wants to ask. Inside, the paramedics move quickly, with the practiced urgency of people who've seen too much and know better than to hope for magic. The staff wait in doorways and corners, their shock colliding with the professionalism drilled into them over years of serving a legend. In this moment, their roles shift, from caretakers to witnesses, from workers to mourners in waiting. The protocols are followed, the checks, the questions, the attempts at life-saving that deep down everyone fears may already be too late. Minutes crawl by, rumours begin to fly, staff texting family, family calling friends, friends calling the world. What's happening at Paisley Park? Social media lights up, speculation fueled by the hunger for news and the dread that what's happening might be true. The perimeter fills with cars and then satellite trucks, all painted with network logos. The world's eyes are now fixed on this once private estate. The news cycle spinning up like a hurricane over still water. As the sun rises higher, the tone shifts from hope to sorrow. Confirmation comes not with a bang, but with a collective sigh, a wave of grief that ripples through the staff, through the waiting crowd, through millions watching on screens around the globe. Reporters lower their voices. Staff members embrace or sit quietly, stunned and exhausted. The legend who made Paisley Park the heart of a musical universe has left, and the world has become a little quieter. In the aftermath, Paisley Park is transformed. It's no longer just a home, or a studio, or a myth. It's a place of mourning. The emergency is over, but the reality has just begun. The artist is gone, and history will remember this morning as the day the music truly stopped. The headlines say, overdose, but the real story is bigger. Fake pills are everywhere, and anyone could be next, no Paisley suit required. You watch the coverage roll in, and you can feel the story narrowing itself into something tidy. A name, a cause, a tragic end. The kind of headline that fits neatly on a screen and lets everyone exhale once they think they understand it. But you know, deep down, in that quiet place where uncomfortable truths live, that this wasn't a celebrity problem. This was a systems problem wearing a famous face. Because while the cameras were pointed at Paisley Park, the same thing was happening everywhere else. In suburbs, in small towns, in apartments where no one knows the neighbour's name. Fake pills were already circulating, already convincing people they were taking something familiar and safe, already blurring the line between medicine and poison. Fame didn't create the danger, it just made the danger visible. You think about how easy it is to imagine this only happens to other people. People with entourages, people with tour schedules, people with lives that look nothing like yours. But the truth is painfully ordinary. The pills don't care who you are. They don't check bank accounts or discographies. They don't pause to admire your shoes. They work the same way in a mansion as they do in a studio apartment with a flickering kitchen light. That's what makes this crisis so insidious. It doesn't announce itself with syringes or alleyways anymore. It shows up looking legitimate. Pressed pills that mimic the real thing perfectly. Online pharmacies with clean websites and reassuring language. Bottles passed from friend to friend with the best intentions and the worst outcomes. The danger hides behind familiarity, and that's why it keeps winning. You hear people say, I would never take something like that, and you know what they mean. They mean illegal drugs. They mean needles. They mean risks they believe they'd recognise. But fentanyl doesn't require recklessness, just trust. Trust in a pill that looks right. Trust in a source that sounds confident. Trust in a system that hasn't kept up with the speed of profit and desperation. The opioid crisis didn't start with fentanyl, but fentanyl changed the rules. It made the margin for error almost non-existent. It turned a single mistake into a final one. And because it's cheap and powerful, it spread fast. Faster than regulations, faster than awareness, faster than most people's understanding of what they were actually taking. By the time the warnings caught up, the damage was already done. You notice how often the conversation drifts toward blame. Who should have known better? Who should have stopped it? Who failed whom? It's comforting in a way to believe tragedies have clear villains, but the reality is messier. This crisis thrives in gaps. Gaps in healthcare access, gaps in pain management, gaps in education, gaps in compassion. It thrives where people hurt and need relief, and where the system responds with delays, suspicion, or silence. And so the cycle continues. Another story. Another family stunned by how fast everything fell apart. Another person who thought they were just managing pain, anxiety, or exhaustion. Normal human problems in an abnormal world. The famous cases make the news. The rest become statistics, buried under phrases like epidemic and surge, words that sound big but feel distant until they're not. If there's anything to take from this, it's that distance is an illusion. This isn't about excess or bad choices or celebrity lifestyles. It's about a world where the safest option isn't always available, and the dangerous one looks harmless. It's about how easily help can turn into harm when the system breaks down. You sit with that thought, heavy but important. Because understanding the crisis means refusing to shrink it. It means recognizing that what happened wasn't rare, it was revealing. And if there's any hope in that, it's this. Once you see the whole picture, you realize this story isn't over. It's still being written, one decision, one pill, one moment of caution at a time. The headlines say, overdose, but the real story is bigger. Fake pills are everywhere, and anyone could be next. No Paisley suit required. From the moment the news breaks, it's easy to get lost in the celebrity of it all. Prince found dead from fentanyl, the anchors say. And suddenly, the whole world is talking about you, your music, and the dangers of prescription drugs. There's something comforting about turning tragedy into a headline, as if knowing the cause can make the pain easier to hold. But beneath the purple floodlights and viral tributes, there's a quieter, more troubling truth. Fentanyl is not picky. It doesn't care if you're rich, if you're famous, if your wardrobe is color-coordinated. It will find its way into medicine cabinets and pockets in every zip code, and when it doesn't check for VIP passes. This is not the exclusive province of tour buses and penthouse suites. The same pills that ended up at Paisley Park are circulating in suburbs, cities, and rural towns. They're sold as oxycodone, as hydrocodone, as Xanax, pressed in back rooms, stamped with convincing codes, but carrying a chemical payload so potent a single pill can end a life. A fake pill can look just like the real thing. The only difference? You might not wake up the next morning. Parents worry about their kids. Kids worry about their parents. Pharmacists try to keep up swapping horror stories in staff rooms. Police issue warnings. Hospitals stock more naloxone. But the problem keeps growing. It's not about recklessness or addiction alone. Sometimes it's about pain, physical or emotional, chasing relief in a system that doesn't always deliver it safely. When the doctor says no, or the prescription runs out, or the real thing becomes too expensive, there's always someone offering an easier answer. An answer that fits in your hand, looks reassuring, but hides disaster. And the numbers tell the story that headlines don't. Opioid deaths soared in the years before and after your passing. Not because celebrities suddenly became more fragile, but because the drug supply changed. Fentanyl is cheap, easy to manufacture, easy to hide in almost anything. Dealers use it to stretch their supply, to increase profits, to meet demand. Most people taking it have no idea what's inside. They think it's safe. They think it's familiar. That's what makes it so dangerous. The crisis isn't just chemical, it's structural. Healthcare that's hard to access. Pain that isn't managed. Stigma around addiction that keeps people silent. Regulations slow to adapt. A market that profits on risk. And a society that still whispers about drug problems instead of shouting for help. When a star like you dies, people talk for a few days. Laws might get debated, a warning label or two added. But for most families, the battle is daily, silent, and close to home. There are glimmers of hope, of course. Naloxone saves lives when it's available. Testing strips help some people check what's really in their pills. Doctors get a little more cautious, parents talk a little more openly. But the storm hasn't passed. Fentanyl is relentless, and the market keeps churning out new counterfeits, each more convincing than the last. As the headlines fade, the lesson remains. Fentanyl doesn't care about the spotlight. It doesn't care about legends or talent or the size of your fan base. It's as much a threat in small towns and college dorms as it is in celebrity mansions. The real story, the one worth telling again and again, is that everyone is vulnerable. That safety isn't guaranteed by status but by awareness, caution, and a system that learns, finally, how to protect people before it's too late. So the next time you hear about another overdose, don't just mourn a legend. Look closer to home. Ask questions. Share what you know. Because the only way out of this crisis is together. One careful conversation, one safer choice, one real pill at a time. As Prince, you wonder how it got this bad. Counterfeit drugs are shipped in by the truckload because apparently the most lucrative business model is dangerous and wildly unregulated. You flip on the news and see another bust, another photo of a pallet stacked high with pills, all labelled and stamped to look just like what's behind the counter at your local pharmacy. You'd think the country's supply of medicine was guarded like gold, but in reality it's more like an all-you-can-eat buffet for anyone with a few connections and a taste for risk. The sheer scale is staggering. Counterfeit pills slip across borders in shipping containers, disguised as harmless vitamins, nutritional supplements, or, ironically, health products. Some never even see a pharmacy shelf. They flow through the mail, hidden in plain sight, moving faster than the system designed to stop them. It wasn't always like this. Once, if you needed a prescription, you got it from your doctor, filled it at the corner drugstore, and that was that. But as opioid prescriptions tightened and the demand for relief stayed sky high, a gap opened, and the market, always hungry, filled it. Factories in far-off countries churned out pills by the millions, all but indistinguishable from the real thing. Maybe the packaging was a little off, or the price was a little too good, but for anyone in pain, it was a small leap to take. Supply chains multiplied and tangled. Shady websites popped up, offering prescription drugs no questions asked, no prescription needed, just a credit card and an address. Some had fake reviews and cheerful customer service, others were barely more than a web page and a PO box. But all of them shared the same promise: fast, easy, private. For people who were hurting, and who'd maybe been turned away or left in the lurch by the healthcare system, it was hard to say no. Of course, what these sites and suppliers didn't mention was quality control. There's no FDA in the world of backdoor pharmaceuticals, no guarantee the pill has what it says on the label. Sometimes it's just filler and chalk, sometimes it's the right drug but the wrong dose, and sometimes too often it's fentanyl slipped in because it's cheap, potent, and easier to hide than you'd think. All it takes is one contaminated batch for disaster to unfold on an industrial scale. As the problem grew, so did the stakes. Law enforcement scrambled to keep up, but for every shipment stopped, more slipped through. Some busts netted hundreds of thousands of pills, each one a potential catastrophe waiting to happen. The business of fakes was just too good. Huge profit margins, little oversight, and an endless stream of buyers desperate for relief. If someone overdosed, it was chalked up to a bad decision or a personal tragedy, rarely traced back to a manufacturing line on the other side of the world. The scariest part? The line between real and fake gets blurrier every year. You might buy from a trusted pharmacy and still end up with something dangerous, especially when the legitimate supply chain is accidentally infiltrated. A misstep at the factory, a swapped shipment, a pharmacist who doesn't check as closely as they should, and suddenly the medicine cabinet is a minefield. For a while, you try to believe it won't touch you. You have connections, resources, people who double-check everything. But the epidemic doesn't discriminate. Fame, money, even vigilance, none of it guarantees safety. In the end, you realize the only thing more abundant than pain is the number of people willing to profit from it, no matter the cost. The lesson is bitter, and not just for the famous. The crisis is everywhere, hidden in plain sight, fueled by loopholes and apathy and the simple, crushing reality that as long as there's demand, there will always be someone willing to supply, even if it means selling danger by the truckload, one pill at a time. Under the microscope, your painkiller is more filler, mystery powder, and deadly fentanyl than anything you'd find in a pharmacy. You can't even get a refund. It's wild to think about what passes for medicine these days. You hold a small white tablet in your hand, perfectly pressed and stamped, as official-looking as anything you'd get from a pharmacy. The packaging even has a faux safety seal, just enough adhesive to give you false confidence. But if you could peel back the layers, if you could actually see what you're about to swallow, the illusion would dissolve. Inside, it's not precision chemistry. It's chaos in a capsule. Legitimate pharmaceuticals are built on consistency. A factory somewhere employs teams of white-coated technicians, each obsessed with cleanliness, accuracy, and batch numbers. There are rules, regulations, checks, and double checks. The pill you take in Minneapolis is chemically identical to the one someone takes in Miami. You trust it because it's made to be trustworthy. But with a counterfeit, all bets are off. You're in the wild west of chemistry, where the goal isn't health, it's profit. The manufacturing process isn't so much state-of-the-art as state of denial. Maybe it's a garage, maybe a back room, maybe a warehouse with equipment that was last sanitized when disco was king. There are no oversight committees, no standard doses, just a handful of raw materials, a pill press, and the blind optimism of people who view expiration dates as polite suggestions. Look closer, and it gets worse. The filler can be anything cheap. Talc, chalk dust, powdered sugar, drywall scrapings, even baking flour from an unlabeled bag. Some pills contain traces of caffeine or diphenhydramine, that's Benadryl to the rest of us, to mimic the slight kick you might expect from a real opioid. Other times, the only thing inside is hope. Hope you won't notice the difference. Hope you won't end up in the ER. Hope the authorities don't trace anything back before the operation moves on. And then, the truly dangerous part, fentanyl. Just a pinch. It's not measured with the meticulous care of a scientist, but tossed in like a secret ingredient on a cooking show. The tiniest amount can be lethal. Sometimes there's too much, sometimes not enough, and sometimes none at all. Meaning the only predictable thing about a counterfeit pill is its unpredictability. Under a microscope, the differences are obvious. Granules and crystals that shouldn't be there. Clumps of binder that didn't dissolve. Colour flecks that belong in a box of crayons. But to the naked eye, they're nearly identical to the genuine article. The forgers have learned how to mimic everything. The shape, the colour, even the little letters and numbers pressed into the surface. Some of them even go so far as to design blister packs and print batch codes. The goal isn't quality. The goal is to get the product out the door and into the world before anyone catches on. And when something goes wrong, when someone gets sick, or worse, there's no customer service hotline. No refunds, no exchanges, no formal apology. If you're lucky, you learn the lesson the hard way and walk away. If not, you become another statistic, another story that gets folded into the ongoing crisis. The reality is, the anatomy of a counterfeit pill isn't just about what's inside. It's about what's missing, accountability, safety, and any concern for the person at the end of the chain. The only real ingredient you can count on is risk. So you look at that pill in your palm and realize it's less medicine, more Russian roulette. The worst part? You only find out what's inside after it's too late. That's the anatomy of a counterfeit pill, built to fool, ready to fail, and with consequences that last far longer than any relief it promises. As the world mourns, everyone has a theory. Was it an accident? Was it sabotage? Or is it just another cruel footnote in the opioid epidemic? The shock of your passing sets off a ripple effect, and in that vacuum of certainty, speculation rushes in to fill the silence. Some fans light candles and play your records on repeat. Others jump straight into detective mode, scouring news reports and cryptic old interviews for hidden meanings. In the digital age, grief and gossip walk hand in hand, and everyone's got a theory ready to be tweeted, shared, or debated over pancakes at midnight. First come the rumours that it was all a setup. He was too careful, too smart, too prince to let this happen by mistake, they say, as if intelligence or artistry ever guaranteed immunity from tragedy. There are whispers about sabotage, of enemies in the entourage or rivals in the industry, of a world where every tragedy must be the result of a grand design, rather than the cruel randomness of bad luck and a broken system. People comb through security footage and tabloid leaks, convinced they'll spot the shadowy figure who slipped something into your medicine cabinet. Others believe you were hounded into hiding pain, a victim of the relentless expectation to be legendary, even when it hurt. They say the industry failed you, the doctors failed you, the world that devoured your art and left little space for your humanity failed you. They argue in forums and comment sections, pointing to every oddity in the timeline, every strange choice, every moment you seemed a little too quiet or a little too tired. Theories multiply. Maybe it was an accidental overdose. Maybe it was a counterfeit pill. Maybe it was both, and neither. A confluence of pressures no single person could escape. Meanwhile, journalists dig into your past. The tabloids run retrospectives, 10 shocking secrets, Prince took to the grave. Late-night hosts run montages set to Purple Rain. Old friends and former collaborators are interviewed for the umpteenth time, asked for any sign that something was wrong. Did he ever mention pain? Did he seem off? Was he himself? They answer with what they remember, or what they wish they'd seen, or what they think the world wants to hear. Even those who barely knew you get pulled into the orbit of speculation. Suddenly everyone's a forensic pharmacologist, an expert in supply chains, a connoisseur of painkiller branding. People argue about what kind of pills were in your system, whether the pharmacy was reputable, if the label was a little too faded, the lot number a little too convenient. The mystery becomes a national pastime, a way to manage grief by pretending there's a puzzle to solve, a riddle that, if only it could be unravelled, would make sense of loss. But beneath all the theories there's a simpler story. The pain was real. The need was real. The system that was supposed to help you wasn't up to the task. For every wild conspiracy, there are 100 quieter tragedies. People lost not to sabotage, but to the indifference of a market that prizes profit over safety, or to the impossible standards of a world that wants art without acknowledging the cost. The hardest truth is the simplest. Sometimes grief just is. It doesn't need a villain, though there are plenty to go around. It doesn't require a grand conspiracy, just the small, slow failures of medicine, trust, and caution. People want closure, a clear reason, a villain, a moral to the story. But sometimes the answer is heartbreakingly ordinary. In the end, the search for answers will go on because that's what people do with pain they can't fix. They look for sense, for order, for someone to blame. The real answer is more complicated and more human. It's that you were loved, you were lost, and the world is still trying to find its balance in your absence. Conspiracies fade. Grief, for better or worse, lingers. They play your songs at candlelight vigils. Strangers cry in Purple Rain. The world remembers the music, the laughter, and the weirdness that made you unforgettable. The news cycles move fast, but grief lingers, stubborn as ever. Fans gather in city squares, in bedrooms and backyards, sharing stories, lyrics, and the odd purple sequined jacket they never thought they'd wear in public. You can hear your music drifting from car radios, from open windows, from impromptu dance parties on rainy streets. Your face, unmistakable even in shadow, appears on murals, on t-shirts, on banners draped over balconies and stadium seats. Every tribute is personal, because you made everyone feel like the music was just for them. It isn't just the hits they remember, though there are plenty. It's the sense of permission you gave people, to be themselves, to be bold, to be ridiculous. You made weirdness not just acceptable, but desirable. You turned style into substance and substance into spectacle. You wore ruffles and eyeliner and high-heeled boots like armour, and in doing so made a generation feel braver. For every fan who ever felt too much, too strange or too different, you were the proof that too much was just enough. Your songs became more than soundtracks. They became lifelines, when doves cry for heartbreak. Let's go crazy for the days when the world demanded a little rebellion. Purple Rain for the moments that needed both beauty and sorrow. People slow danced, proposed, grieved, and celebrated to your melodies. Some found comfort in the lyrics, others in the energy. Everyone found something to hold on to. The tributes pour in, some solemn, some joyful, all honest. Musicians share stories of your generosity and your quiet wisdom, how you'd invite them to jam for hours, give them advice, or send a single cryptic note that would inspire a year's worth of work. Friends recall late-night phone calls, pancake breakfast at odd hours, or unexpected gifts, a guitar, a poem, a song you wrote for no reason except you could. For those who knew you well, your legend was equal parts genius and goofball, an artist who took the music seriously but rarely himself. And of course there are the stories that defy logic but ring true. The time you played a 3-hour encore because it felt right. The time you turned an arena blackout into an impromptu acoustic set. The time you outdanced a ballet troupe in boots taller than most of their careers. The world delights in the absurdity and the audacity because it was real. You were real, in a way few artists ever let themselves be. But as the weeks pass, the conversation changes. It's not just about loss, it's about gratitude. Grateful for the art, the colour, the soundtrack to 1,000 personal moments. Grateful that, even now, your music continues to surprise people, to find new listeners, to startle and move and comfort. People take comfort in your legacy because it's proof that creativity outlasts everything. The scandals, the pain, the tragedy, none of it is strong enough to dim what you left behind. Your music becomes a kind of shelter, a place for the heartbroken, the joyous, the weird, and the hopeful. And in that shelter, everyone is a little bit more themselves. So as candles flicker, as purple rain falls from speakers and skies, and as strangers smile at each other in recognition, the message is clear. You're gone, but you're everywhere. In the laughter, in the fashion choices, in the awkward air guitar solos performed behind closed doors. Prince was more than a musician. He was an invitation to live brighter, stranger, and with a whole lot more funk. That's a legacy that outshines any tragedy. Sometimes you think fame is its own security blanket. Private jets, secret aliases, a home that looks like it was designed by a committee of eccentric wizards, surely that keeps you safe. But as Prince, you realise, fame just means the consequences show up in fancier shoes. At first there's a sense of insulation. Your world is all velvet curtains, passcodes and trusted circles. Everything you need, someone is paid to provide. Bodyguards handle crowds, lawyers handle lawsuits, and assistants handle the little things, like remembering which fake name to use when you check in at the doctor's office. It's tempting to believe that misfortune can't scale the walls of Paisley Park, that tragedy can't read your tour schedule or slip past the velvet rope. But immunity is a myth, and fame is no shield. In some ways, it's the opposite. For every layer of privacy, there's a matching layer of scrutiny. People track your every move, tabloids, fans, even the staff who have signed NDAs, thick enough to be used as doorstops. Your mistakes aren't just personal, they're public. A bad decision isn't a footnote, it's a headline. When it comes to health, especially pain, especially medication, the myth unravels faster. Sure, you can afford the best doctors, but they're still guessing, still operating in the same fog of regulations and red tape as anyone else. Sometimes the abundance of options just creates more confusion. One friend swears by a specialist in Switzerland, another by a new therapy only available in LA, a third by an old family remedy involving ginger, prayer, and probably a little bit of denial. You travel with your own pharmacy, carefully labelled, colour-coded, catalogued by people you hope double-check everything. But you're still one shipment, one careless refill, one trusting moment away from danger. If anything, the risk is amplified by the sheer number of people in your orbit. More hands in the process means more cracks for something to slip through. And the stakes, they're higher than ever, because the whole world is watching. You discover, often too late, that fame attracts enablers as easily as helpers. Everyone wants to be the one who fixes the problem. Sometimes their advice is sound, sometimes it's just wishful thinking, with a little money and influence to help it along. Even the best intentions can lead to shortcuts, and shortcuts, in a system already riddled with counterfeits and confusion, are an invitation for disaster. The thing no one tells you is that tragedy doesn't discriminate. Addiction, accidental overdose, bad medicine, these things aren't impressed by Grammys or platinum records. If anything, they're attracted to the chaos that comes with living in the spotlight. The phone calls, the travel, the pressure to perform, the need to keep up appearances, these can blur judgment, cloud routine, make risk feel like necessity. And when something goes wrong, the fallout is spectacular. Reporters at the gates, helicopters overhead, think pieces in every publication, all of them picking apart the myth of your invincibility, using your pain as a lesson for the masses. Your legacy is measured not just by what you did right, but by the cautionary tale you leave behind. In the end, being Prince or any other icon isn't a get-out-of-tragedy-free card. It's just a front-row seat to your own vulnerabilities. Fame can't buy safety. It can only buy a better view of the risks everyone faces in or out of the spotlight. If you're lucky, your story becomes a reminder that no one, no matter how protected, how admired, how beloved, is untouchable. And maybe that's the truth that finally sets everyone free. This morning's breakfast is well. Nobody knows. Your chef arrives with a kale smoothie that smells like ambition and regret, while your nutritionist emails another warning about the 5-almond lunch. You miss the days when food was just whatever is in the fridge, not a philosophical debate. There was a time when breakfast meant comfort, pancakes with extra syrup, the lingering aroma of coffee, maybe a secret stash of peanut butter cups tucked away for emergencies. But now, as Prince, eating has become an exercise in existential confusion. Is that protein powder or ground moonstone? Is the juice supposed to be this green, or is this just a prank from your personal trainer? Every meal is a production, complete with scripts. The chef enters the kitchen like a sommelier describing rare wines, notes of spirulina, with a subtle hint of despair. You eye the superfood bowl suspiciously, poking it with a spoon. Is it still alive? Should it be? Breakfast conversations revolve around antioxidants, inflammation, and whether anyone can tell the difference between chia and poppy seeds without a microscope. The nutritionist, always remote, always cheerful, sends daily emails with subject lines like, "Your liver says, 'Thank you,' and 'Have you considered celery?' The plans change weekly. One day it's raw vegan, the next it's protein forward. The day after that it's intuitive fasting, which seems like an elaborate way to describe skipping lunch, because you're too busy rehearsing. You smile and nod, dutifully eating the prescribed number of walnuts, and then sneak a pancake after midnight when no one's watching. Or so you hope. Then there are the detoxes. Each one is more elaborate than the last. Last month it was a juice cleanse, endless little bottles in shades of green and orange, the taste ranging from garden hose to sad salad. This week it's charcoal lemonade. You're promised it'll pull toxins from your body. Mostly, it pulls patience from your soul. You ask if there's a detox for the endless cycle of detoxes, but your team just hands you more coconut water. Every so often, a new fad arrives. Intermittent fasting, macro counting, the 7 foods to never eat list. You try to keep up, but the advice is dizzying. Is gluten the enemy or your secret friend? Are nightshades dangerous, or is that just a rumour started by the potato lobby? Your chef winks, slides you an extra blueberry and says, "Just eat the music, man." You appreciate the sentiment, but it's hard to stay in rhythm when your lunch tastes like compressed lawn clippings. On tour, the food drama goes mobile. You've got Tupperware filled with beet hummus, emergency almonds in your guitar case, and a security guard whose only real job is to keep the local catering staff away from the craft table. Sometimes, after a long night, you just want to order a pizza. The team launches into crisis mode. Cheese is inflammatory. Tomatoes are a nightshade. Is that gluten in the crust? You consider becoming a fruitarian, but the fruit basket looks like it came from a still life painted during the Dust Bowl. Despite the best efforts of your entourage, the truth is you still crave normal food. Comfort food. Food that tastes like home, not like a science project. You sneak away, find a diner on the edge of town and order waffles. The waitress doesn't recognize you. And for 15 glorious minutes you eat like the rest of the world. No lectures, no detoxes, just syrup and satisfaction. You return to Paisley Park feeling a little guilty, a lot happier, and no worse for wear. Maybe your next album will be inspired by fibre, or maybe it'll just be about pancakes. After all, even legends have to eat, and sometimes the weirdest diet is the one where you actually enjoy your meal. Under the spotlight, you're superhuman. Adrenaline, sequins, and adoring fans turn pain into pure electricity. But the minute you step off stage, it's like Cinderella at midnight. Your body reminds you that glass slippers and platform boots were never meant for marathon sprints. There's nothing like the charge you get on stage. The first blare of the band, the lights catching on glittering sleeves, the swell of voices singing every word back to you. In those moments, you are untouchable. No pain, no doubt, just the pulse of the crowd and the sweet ache of possibility. You leap, you spin, you fall to your knees in a perfect split, the kind that would have your orthopedist watching through their fingers. For 90 minutes, you forget everything but the music. The energy is so real, it's almost narcotic. It floods every cell and tells you you'll never need sleep or painkillers again. But the crowd fades, the house lights rise, and the illusion shatters the moment you step behind the curtain. The applause muffles behind walls, replaced by the sound of your own ragged breath. The sweat cools, the glitter settles, and suddenly your body files all the complaints it's been holding in. Ankles throb, back spasms, and those iconic boots, your onstage armour, come off with the groan of someone peeling off a too-tight Halloween costume after one too many Snickers bars. The transformation is abrupt. You go from icon to injured reserve in a single exhale. The crew knows the drill, someone hands you a towel, someone else a bottle of water, and your personal medic, because yes, you have one, hovers just out of sight, ready with ice packs and a look that says, "Do not make me call the doctor." You drop into the nearest chair, throne to folding chair, velvet to vinyl, and realise you can't feel your left foot. That's okay, you tell yourself. It'll wake up eventually. The backstage reality is a blur of routine. The band cracks jokes, the dancers peel off tape and wring sweat from their hair, and you try to smile through the aftershock. Adrenaline is a liar. It convinces you that you can do anything, but it leaves without warning and sends the bill to your muscles. You try stretching, but everything feels too tight, too tender. You know you should rest, maybe even ice your knees for longer than 2 minutes, but part of you is already replaying the next show in your mind. Then come the rituals. The heating pad, the handful of vitamins, the familiar packet of painkillers, each swallowed with a hope that the next morning you'll feel 20 again. You scroll through social media, watching the world rave about your performance, the way you made it look effortless. Prince never slows down, they write. If only they knew that you measure the success of each show in how many steps you can take without limping. The hardest part is the quiet. The energy that once bounced off arena walls now sits heavy on your shoulders. You're alone with the echo of your own heartbeat and the list of minor injuries that will never make the headlines. You remember every show, the moments of pure euphoria, but also every bruise, every pulled muscle, every night you lay awake wondering how long you can keep paying this price. Yet, somehow, the euphoria is worth it. The pain is real, but so is the joy. You trade one for the other and call it even. You're reminded every night that being superhuman isn't about never feeling pain. It's about stepping into the light, giving everything, and trusting that when the curtain falls, you'll find the strength to do it all again tomorrow. The glass slipper may pinch, the boots may bruise, but for those moments on stage, you fly. And for you, that will always be enough. You glance at your phone, 5 interview requests, a manager with the urgency of a caffeinated meerkat, and 3 people wanting selfies with your breakfast. As Prince, you discover there's no off switch, only lower brightness settings. Privacy isn't a door, it's a rumour. It's not just the music that makes you a legend, it's the persona, the mystique, the way you float into a room and turn even the act of sipping tea into performance art. Everyone expects a show, even when you're just trying to eat toast. The world has fallen in love with the idea of Prince as much as the man himself, and every waking moment is a chance for someone to capture a piece of you for posterity, or at least for Instagram. You try to draw boundaries, but fame doesn't knock politely. It bursts through the front gate, crashes the party, and calls your name while you're still in your pajamas. You find yourself performing even in the mundane, responding to texts with cryptic lyrics, signing autographs on receipts, offering a wink and a flourish when all you want is coffee. The staff are used to it, but you wonder if even the espresso machine expects a bow. Meetings are never just meetings. Every question is a potential headline, every pause a chance for speculation. A raised eyebrow in the wrong context becomes a rumour by lunch. The PR team sits in the corner, notebooks out, hoping you'll say something profound but not too profound, something tweetable but not controversial. You begin to measure your words, always thinking 2 steps ahead, watching for the trapdoors that open beneath celebrities who dare to have a bad day in public. And then there are the interviews. Oh, the interviews. Some days it's radio, others it's late-night TV. You're always on, always ready with a soundbite, a mysterious smile, an answer that raises as many questions as it solves. They ask about inspiration, about the music, about your favourite colour of socks. You master the art of being present while holding something back. Mystique isn't just a brand, it's a survival mechanism. Fans are a blessing and a burden. You love them truly, but their enthusiasm can be relentless. You get approached at airports and grocery stores at the DMV. Sometimes they want an autograph, sometimes a hug, sometimes they just want to see if you really do shimmer in natural light. The expectation is that you'll always say yes, always sparkle, always leave them with a story to tell their friends, and most of the time you do. But even you have days when the mask feels heavy, when you just want to be anonymous and buy toothpaste without comment. You try to carve out moments of solitude, late-night walks through Paisley Park, locking yourself in the studio, disappearing into music that needs no audience. But even here, the demands creep in. Another call, another request, another knock at the door. You start to envy the invisibility of ordinary life, the luxury of running errands in sweatpants and never once having to explain your mood. There's an art to surviving this kind of constant exposure. You learn to lower the brightness, not turn it off. You wear sunglasses indoors, headphones in the car, and sometimes answer questions with riddles just to keep people guessing. The people closest to you understand, at least they try. But even they have trouble distinguishing between the person and the persona. Privacy becomes less about shutting people out and more about finding quiet corners where you can just be. The real curse isn't the attention. It's never being allowed to turn it off, to be just you, if only for an afternoon. So you keep the show going, adjusting the spotlight as needed, reminding yourself that even legends deserve a break, if only for the length of a well-earned paparazzi-free nap. And maybe, just maybe, you'll finally get to finish your breakfast. You're not even gone an hour before the internet's flooded with tributes, hot takes, and suspiciously fast t-shirt sales. The world mourns, but it's all likes, hashtags, and purple heart emojis. Somewhere, you suspect your ghost is reading the comments and quietly correcting the lyrics. Messes, 1,000 posts, 1,000 attempts to make sense of the impossible. And while the likes fade and the hashtags move on, the music, the real tribute, never stops. So tonight, as you sink into the comfort of your own bed, with your thermostat set somewhere between cozy and Florida retirement home, spare a thought for Prince, the restless genius who gave the world Purple Rain, Revolution, and the kind of dance moves that should have come with a health warning. Remember how even legends aren't immune to life's hidden traps, whether it's fake pills, fame's relentless spotlight, or the aches that come from living larger, louder, and longer than anyone thought possible. Because at the end of the day, history's biggest tragedies are never just about loss, they're about what we carry forward. Prince survived the spotlight, the rumours, the physical pain, and a pharmaceutical industry that somehow made getting real medicine harder than buying a solid gold tambourine. He was proof that brilliance and vulnerability aren't opposites. They're dance partners, moonwalking across the same stage. Let this be a quiet, purple-tinged reminder. The world can be both beautiful and dangerous, and sometimes the smallest things, one pill, one mistake, one moment, can change everything. Be grateful tonight for the simple gifts, safe medicine, honest friends, and the ability to shut the door on the world when you need to. Most of us will never play guitar solos in a cloud of dry ice, but we do get to choose kindness, caution, and maybe, just maybe, the better kind of painkiller. So, rest easy. Tomorrow is unwritten, and somewhere, if you listen close, you might just hear the faintest echo of a guitar riff, promising that even in the darkest hours, a little bit of funk, hope, and absurdity will see us through. Good night, friends.